Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning to all our viewers online from MMU Live and also Facebook Live. Thank you for joining us today for the Real Electrical and Electronics Engineering webinar series organized by the Faculty of Engineering, Multimedia University, Cyberjaya. My name is Katrina and today I will be the moderator for today's webinar series. I am a lecturer in Faculty of Engineering, Multimedia University. Please stay tuned with us until the end of the webinar to get your e-certificate by filling in the attendance form. We are very honored today to have Dr. Tan Wei Hao with us to give a webinar on the topic using Python in engineering applications. Before we start, let me give a short introduction on Dr. Tan Wei Hao. Dr. Tan Wei Hao is currently the Deputy Dean, Academic and International Relations of Faculty of Engineering, Multimedia University, where he is also a senior lecturer. Dr. Tan received his Masters of Science in Electronics from Queen's University of Belfast, UK, and a PhD in Engineering from Multimedia University. Dr. Tan's area of expertise include image processing, embedded system design, Internet of Things (IoT), machine learning, and deep learning. He has participated in various government and privately funded projects since he started his career with the university. His works has been published in numerous international journals and conferences. Besides, he has also co-authored 2 textbooks on microcontroller systems. Dr. Tan has been actively involved in designing and developing hardware prototypes for Internet of Things based embedded systems and software systems for machine learning and deep learning. He is also teaching electronics, embedded system design, artificial intelligence, and computer networking at both undergraduate and postgraduate levels. As a trainer certified by HRDF, he also provides training and workshops for industries, especially in the areas of Internet of Things (IoT), machine learning, and deep learning. In addition, Dr. Tan is also a regular participant in competitions such as Innovate Malaysia Design Competition, ITEX, and Pecita, from which he has won several awards. So let us start our webinar today on using Python in engineering applications. So Dr. Tan, maybe you can, as a start, perhaps you can elaborate about the concept of programming in engineering. Yeah? So does engineering involve programming as well?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Katrina. Definitely, programming is very important in engineering. Okay, regardless of whether you are doing electrical and electronic engineering, or even mechanical engineering, or even civil engineering. So, because today we are living in a digital world, so everything is already digitized. Okay, so programming is a very important skill, in fact, okay, for us to actually solve a lot of these our problems. Okay, so mainly programming, we can view it in engineering. We can view it as a skill to allow us to perform controlling, okay, and as well as automation. Basically, we can view programming as a way to give instruction, okay, to machine through coding. Okay, so this is to allow us to control devices, to automate tasks for problem solving, and also try to simplify the workflow. Okay, making something simpler so that we can get things done faster. So we can mainly use this programming as a skill for problem solving. To solve problems mainly involve repetitive tasks, as well as involving large amount of data as well as information. Okay, so by using programming, it can help us to save time on what can be very repetitive as well as very tedious. Right. So for example, um, we can program the machine on the production line. Okay, in order to control the processes as well as the operation to be performed on the machine, as well as to synchronize what are the operations to be performed by those machines. So that, for example, on the production line, machine A, okay, should actually start the process at a specific time. Okay, after machine A, for example, complete the operation, then followed by machine B. And maybe machine B and machine C can both start the operation at the same time and so on. Okay, so this allow automation to be done in a timely manner, right? And also programming, okay, can also be viewed as a very important aspect to help, okay, help us to reinforce problem solving, because through programming we can break the problems into smaller pieces, and then we can find possible solution, okay, to solve each of these smaller problems. Okay, so we can try to solve a problem through this technique called divide and conquer. Okay, whereby we break a problem into smaller pieces, and then we solve them, okay, individually, right? So it can train our problem solving skill. Okay. All right. So back to you, Dr. Katrina.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Weihao, on the explanation about the importance of programming, in engineering as well. So today's the programming language that we will talk today is Python. I'm sure maybe some of you have heard of Python before, and how Python is actually being used in engineering applications. And in fact, Python now is currently the top programming language. In fact, just now we had another webinar with Dr. Yu from the semiconductor industry. She also mentioned about Python programming languages now, yeah, as one of the more important programming language for an engineer to learn. So perhaps Dr. Tan, you can share with us why is Python language currently the top.
Oops. Okay. I think the question is why Python is currently the top programming language, right? Okay. So traditionally, I think in engineering, we learn about C, C++, or in the older day, we even learn about a programming language called Fortran. Okay, Fortran, C, C++, and so on. Maybe some have learned about Pascal. Okay, but currently, what we can see is Python is now a very highly sought over programming language, right? So there are some reason behind this why Python is so popular. Okay, so but before that, let us just maybe let me just share with you the background. Okay, a very brief introduction of what exactly is Python. Maybe some of you have already heard about it. Some of you have actually using it as well now. But maybe for the benefit of those who have just learned about Python, let us just look at what exactly is Python. Okay, and let me just share a simple slide, okay, with you on this. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, so what exactly is Python? We know that Python is a programming language, right? So we have many types of programming languages around us. And as I've told you earlier, for engineering, the conventional programming language that we learn will be C or C++, or maybe assembly language, okay? Or in some cases, maybe Fortran as well. Uh, Now, Python is, compared to those programming languages, Python is relatively new, but it's not too new. Okay, if you look at this, the slide that I'm presenting here, Python was created by Guido van Rossum. Okay, and it was first released in 1991. Right, so it's about uh, more than 30 years already. Right, 3 decades already. This programming language. Right, so it's not new. Um, so it's basically an interpreted high level and general purpose programming language, right? So very easy to use and so on. Okay, and is considered as a full spectrum language. Okay, why are we saying that it's a full spectrum language? Is that it covers from very basic usage up to very advanced usage. Okay, that is Python is relatively easy to learn, easy to get started. But it doesn't mean that Python is just good as a programming language for you to learn about the concept of programming. And then that's it. You just leave it behind and use some other programming languages. It's only good to introduce the programming concept. No, okay. In fact, Python, it can grow with you. Okay. If when you are becoming more skillful, okay, with Python, with the language itself, you will see that the language will grow with you. It will scale and grow with you. As you are becoming better, you can see that Python can provide you more. In fact, um, to be frank with you, I'm still discovering something new on Python every day because this language is very interesting. It's progressively improving, okay? In the sense that there are new libraries available, okay? And in fact, there are so many libraries available that we can't really, discover all of them, okay? So that's why I'm still discovering something new every day about Python. And the language itself, currently the development cycle, okay, a new version will be released in every 15 months. Okay, so every 15 months, there'll be a new version coming out. Okay, so in the new version, they will introduce something new, okay, in the language itself, some new syntax, some new features, and so on. Okay, so that's why I feel that this programming language is very interesting. Okay, there's something new for us to discover every day. Okay, because of the large amount of libraries available. Okay, so basically this is about Python and why, okay, is it so popular? Okay, let us just look at the popularity before we discuss why it is popular. If we look at this a number of surveys that have been done, okay, firstly is this survey done by IEEE Spectrum last year. In fact, IEEE Spectrum is the magazine by IEEE, right? So every year, they have been doing this survey, okay, on top programming languages, and Python, okay, for the past, I think, five consecutive year, okay, Python has been not five, I think more than 5 years. Python have been consistently topping the list. Okay, means is number one in the list. Okay, for more than 5 years consecutively. Right. So this is according to IEEE Spectrum. So the survey is actually done by looking at those IEEE transaction, the paper published in IEEE transaction, as well as those conferences, okay, and look at what are the programming languages that are being used, okay, in those research, right? So they found that Python is the most popular among the academic, right? And then according to another index, okay, so this is the TIOBE, okay, or TIOBE, Programming Community Index. So this is another index that's listing the ranking of programming languages, okay, according to their popularity, based on web search, okay, on Google, Bing, and so on, right? So Python, again, this is the latest one. We don't have the statistic for June yet, but for May, Python is number one. Okay. In fact, Python just overtake C, okay, as well as Java last year, right? C and Java have been topping this list, the TIOBE Programming Community Index, for the past 20 years already, right? But Python managed to overtake them just last year. Okay, and ever since it has stayed on at the top position. Okay, and if you look at the lower right hand corner, the most in demand programming languages of 2022, right? So this is according to LinkedIn job posting in US as well as Europe. Okay, so you can see that Python, the job post uh, for Python in US is actually more than other programming languages. Okay, and if we look at Europe, of course, if it's slightly lower than this Java, uh, but it's still among the top three, I would say, right, in Europe. Okay, so this is how popular Python is currently, right? And then why is it popular? Why? Okay, let's look at the reason. These are the strength of Python. Firstly, is great documentation and community, right? So there are literally tons of documentation available on Python. You can just search, okay, just do a web search, and you'll be able to find um, um, a lot of this documentation explaining about Python function, Python keywords, and so on. Okay, on the web, whether it's from the official channel through the Python Foundation, or from this, from somewhere else. Okay, right. So there are a lot of documentation, and there are also a lot of tutorial available online. Okay, for us to learn about Python. So you can learn about this Python through this website, or even through video available from YouTube, okay, to learn about Python. And about the community, okay, so there is a huge community which is using Python, okay, huge user base for Python. So because of this huge community for Python, it's very easy for us to to find any possible solution in case you encounter any problems in your Python programs. Okay, so you just need to do a web search, and most likely you'll be able to find a solution online, right? Because there are simply so many users of Python. Okay, so many people are using Python, right? So this actually can speed up our development as well, because when you encounter a problems, you don't really have to think of it yourself and so on. You can try to do a web search. If you can't find a solution on a web search, you can always go to those online forum, okay, related to Python programming, for example, like Stack Overflow. Post your question, and most likely, okay, there will be someone uh, replying to your question, okay, and propose you a solution, okay. Secondly, is it has very clean syntax and very readable codes, right? The syntax for Python is very simple, okay. It does not involve a lot of these curly brackets and so on, and the codes are quite easy to read. In fact, it's quite similar to the English, okay, English language, right? So very simple to read, easy to understand. And thirdly, it support multiple platform. Okay, so over here we are talking about different type of operating systems. Okay, for example, Windows, Linux, Mac OS, Android, and iOS. So you can even use Python on those mobile platform. Okay, right? So you just need to write your script or your Python code once, and then you can use it in different platform. But of course, some of the function, especially those more related to the operating system, that one maybe you need to do some minor tweaking, okay, before you can, for example, use it in different operating system. But overall, if you are not really using any OS or operating system specific function, you can just use your code directly on a different operating system. Okay, and then the fourth strength will be interactive, right? Python is actually based on interpreter. It's an interpreter-based programming language. So with this interpreter, it has its strength and weaknesses. We will discuss about the weaknesses later. However, because of this interpreter, is interactive. So you can sort of like type one line of statement or a block of Python statement, and you can run your codes, and it can immediately provide you with result. So this greatly helps in learning, okay, about the language, and you can even do some short experiment on the using the Python interpreter, right? So it greatly helps in the learning process, okay, as you can immediately see the result because of the interactiveness. And the fifth strength, which is I think this is the greatest strength, okay, one of the greatest strength of Python, is the large collection of libraries. Okay, in fact, is I think is the largest among all the different programming languages. Okay, this is the main strength of Python. There are so many libraries over there. Okay, uh, that allow us to use Python. Okay, to build different kind of application for different very diverse area. Okay, so from artificial intelligence, okay, you can build application using Python for artificial intelligence all the way to embedded system. Okay, you can even use Python for embedded system now, right? So because of this very large collection of libraries, it allows us to rapidly develop application. Okay, because in modern world now we are talking about speed. Okay, we can't afford to really spend months, in developing an application or developing a solution. Everything is about speed. We need to be fast. Okay, so this is a strength of Python. So using Python by leveraging those libraries, we can quickly develop an application. Okay, so Python is all about writing code faster. Okay, not writing faster code. Okay, so these are the strength. Okay, the strength of Python. Okay,
Okay,
so
so
that's it about this. Back to you, Dr. Katrina.
thank you, Dr. Tan. Yeah, so it's very interesting when you mentioned about Python has a large collection of libraries. Yeah, so maybe for the sake of our viewers, yeah, some maybe are not familiar with libraries. Well, what do you mean actually libraries? Is it like there's a template on how to develop certain application? So
Yeah,
it's easier
basically
to
the
just
libraries
change the
are,
parameters.
yes, the libraries are referring to those codes that have been completed by others, okay,
Mm-hmm.
for specific tasks. For example, we talk about AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say in AI, you need to process data. Okay, you need to take in the data. For example, the data can be images.
Mm-hmm.
You need to process these thousands or even can be up to millions of images, right? So how to do that? You do not have to start from scratch. Okay, writing your code from scratch, because uh, we already have someone else. Okay, it's not someone, but a very big organization. For example, Google. Okay, Google, they have this AI library called TensorFlow. Okay, so we can use this TensorFlow to help us. Okay, to get these images and then process them before using them to train our AI model, for example. So you don't have to write your code from scratch. You just need to import those library and use those function, okay, defined in the library to perform the task that we need. Okay, in fact, maybe just let me just share one more. Um,
Okay.
okay, so this is actually a repository for Python libraries. Okay, so Python libraries, we call them Python modules and packages, right? So on this PyPI stand for Python Package Index. It's a repository of Python libraries, third-party Python libraries lah. Okay, so whereby you can see that up to now there are already over 380,000 projects. These projects are basically those modules and libraries that we can reuse in your code. Okay, so you can just search for the project. For example, I want to do something related to
Mm-hmm.
artificial intelligence. Okay, so you can search and then it will tell you what are the related libraries for this. Okay, so you can
So
then easily, yes,
sorry. So this library we can
Dr.
just
Katrina.
yeah, we can just use this library. Yeah, code means we don't have to ask for permission or copyright
No,
issues, anything
yeah,
like.
no need for permission. You can just use this library. You can add this library to your machine, okay, and then
Mm-hmm.
use them in your Python programming, okay, in your Python
Okay.
program.
Okay.
For example, of course,
Mm-hmm.
one of the very popular one will be TensorFlow. Okay, so you can
Mm-hmm.
search for TensorFlow, and
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, this is TensorFlow. All right, so
Mm-hmm.
you can click on it, and then it can just tell you how to install TensorFlow. Okay, basically you just
Okay.
need to go to your command prompt or terminal and then issue this command, right? But provided that you have already installed this tool called pip, okay, in order to install this library, right? Okay, so you can see that, for example, TensorFlow, this is a license. So you can check what is a license, whether
Mm-hmm.
you can use this freely for
Mm-hmm.
commercial purposes or is only for individual, non-commercial purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you can check the license, and you can also check, for example, which version of Python, because as I told you earlier, is that Python is a very progressively developed
Yes.
language. So every
Mm-hmm.
15 months now, they actually release a new version. Okay, so you can also check what is the version that is supported on this library. For example, this is the latest version, 3.10. Okay, currently 3.11 is in the beta version, right? So you need to check this to see which version of Python is compatible with this library.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
If it's not
Yeah. So
compatible, then we cannot use it. No?
uh, if not compatible, you can still use it. You just need to use a version, okay, that
Mm-hmm.
is compatible. Uh, in Python, you can install different version of Python, okay, in the
Mm-hmm.
same machine, right? So this
Oh,
is what we call virtual environment. So you can create a virtual environment. You can have a different version of Python installed on the same machine. In fact, you can
mm,
install multiple of them, and then in each of the virtual environment, you can install different set of libraries, right? So it's
mm.
quite flexible in this way.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so I think yeah, that's it for this part. So back to you, Dr. Katrina.
Yes. So can you share some of the applications that uses Python? I think just now you mentioned briefly about artificial intelligence, right?
Yes, yes. Artificial intelligence. In fact, one of the reason why Python is so popular now is because of
Uh-huh.
artificial intelligence.
Okay.
You can see that Python is not new. Okay, it's not a new programming language. In fact, it
Yeah, from the
was introduced in 1991, already 3 decades, right? More than 3 decades already.
yes,
But
yes.
why is it so popular just this recent few years? There
Mm,
must be a reason, right? The
yes.
main reason is
Mm,
because of the AI and also
yeah.
data science.
Okay.
So, but of course, Python is not limited to only used in AI or data science. In
Uh-huh.
fact, Python is used in many other, can be used in many other application. Okay, it's just that for AI and also data science, Python has these very popular libraries. Okay, in fact, just now I told you about TensorFlow, right?
Yes. Yes.
Then there's
Yes.
another one called PyTorch. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
TensorFlow is from Google, is a
Mm-hmm.
very popular framework for uh, deep neural network. And
Mm-hmm.
PyTorch is from Facebook. Okay, it's also a
Oh, okay.
free library
Mm-hmm.
for deep neural network. Okay, other than that, Python also have other libraries such as scikit-learn for machine learning. Okay, which is also hugely popular. Right,
Mm.
so that is the reason why Python is so popular these few years.
It's
But
because of
the
the AI.
application is not limited to AI, not limited to AI. Maybe
Okay.
I just share this slide with you
Mm-hmm.
on the application area. It's not limited. This is just some of the application. Okay, again, it's not limited to the one that I'm showing you on this slide. Okay, of course, firstly, the most popular will be on AI, right? AI, and then for data science as well. Python can also be used for data processing, data analysis, and data visualization. Okay, so you also have these hugely popular libraries to perform this operation. Okay, on data. Python is also used for scientific and mathematical computing, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you can use it to do some numerical computation. You can also use it to do like symbolic, to solve some symbolic mathematical problems, okay, and so on. Python is also used for web development, okay. In fact, there is this very popular web framework from Python, which is called Django. So a lot of these hugely popular organization,
Mm-hmm.
such as Instagram, okay, Instagram,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and I think Dropbox, okay. So they are actually using this Python, okay, to power their web interface, okay, their web interface, right? And just recently, a few years ago, uh, Python is also being used in embedded system. Okay, so there are these new variants of Python called micro Python and also
Mm-hmm.
circuit Python, whereby you can actually download the whole Python, micro
Mm-hmm.
Python or circuit Python into the microcontroller. Okay,
Oh,
and
okay.
because the modern microcontroller, they are powerful enough already, so they can actually run the Python codes. Okay, uh, in the microcontroller itself. But it's not those 8-bit or 16-bit microcontroller. These microcontrollers are mainly those more powerful microcontroller, such as the ARM Cortex microcontroller. Okay, at least 32-bit. Okay, in order to support this Python. Okay, right? So meaning that you just learn Python, now you can even write codes for embedded system, for the microcontroller, for the hardware, right? And
Yes.
Python is also used in Internet of Things. Why? Is
Mm-hmm.
because you can use Python to write the codes to on the embedded system, right, on the microcontroller, to get the data from the sensor, right? Get the data
Mm-hmm.
from the sensor, and then send this data to a gateway. And then on your gateway, you can even run Python on your gateway. For example, you can use a Raspberry Pi, which is a single board computer, on as a gateway. And this gateway, once it receives the data from this microcontroller, from the embedded system, it can push the data, okay, again using Python, push the data to a cloud computing platform. So on the cloud computing platform, we can also use Python to receive the data and then to store the data in the database using Python, okay, using Python. And once the data is stored, we can then display the data for data visualization. We present the data on the dashboard. Again,
Mm-hmm.
we can do this using Python. Okay, you
Okay.
can even have build a IoT dashboard using Python, right? And if you want to go further, you want to analyze the data. Yes, you can also use Python. And
Mm-hmm.
if you want to create a model for your data, for example, you want to learn something from the data, you want to model the data so that you can make prediction, yes, you can also use Python. So from end to end, okay, from the device side where you collect the data up to the moment you actually use the data to build the machine learning model or deep learning model to do prediction, everything can be done using Python. Okay, you can see that
Yeah.
use by just learning Python, you can do all this, right? So this is how
Yes.
convenient Python is, right? How
Yes.
convenient Python is,
So
right?
there are so many
And we
applications
can,
using Python here.
yes.
Mm.
Okay, then for system automation and administration, of course, this like for example, you want your computer, okay, to do backup, okay, on a constant on a regular basis. Maybe every week, every Monday at no at 5 a.m. You want your computer to back up the data, right? So you can do this using Python as well. Okay, so this is for system automation. You can also do system administration using Python. Even game development. Okay, Python also have some popular library to develop game as well, right? And then for security and penetration testing, okay, we are talking about, let's say, cyber security. You can also use Python to do that. And for general application and specific scripting, let's say you want to generate 100 different PDF file. And in the PDF file, you just want to change the name, okay, of the recipient, or the name or the address of the recipient. You can use Python to do that, generating hundreds of PDF file for you. This is for scripting, right? To actually help us to automate the task. And instead of you manually editing the file, change the name, change the address, and so on, you can use Python to do that. And then it can even help you to email to all those recipients, the PDF file to all those recipients automatically, right?
Mm.
And of course, Python can also be used for simulation. Okay, so you can use Python to do simulation uh, for some experiments and so on. Okay, to get the result. Okay, and lastly, Python is also popular for finance and trading, right? It's for fintech, financial technology. Okay, so these are just, I would say, the tips of an iceberg. Okay, of the application possible to be developed using Python.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, there are many applications that actually uses Python. So how about the role of engineers? Yeah, do engineers play a role in the world of Python?
Yes, definitely. Okay, in fact, a lot of engineers actually work with Python. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
in fact, in all those, even for E&E industry, okay, they use Python mainly. For example, to develop some of the API, application programming interface. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
that the end user can easily get access to their devices or instrument or equipment. right? So one of these is, for example, like this oscilloscope that I have over here. Maybe I just share this
Okay.
this
Yes.
application with you.
Okay.
Let me just uh, okay. Let me just switch to this one. Okay, so over here you can see I have an oscilloscope. So this is a digital oscilloscope. Okay, this is so we can control this one. Okay, we can control this one. Why are we controlling it? Is for example, sometime you are remotely. Okay, you don't have physical access to this instrument. Okay, so how can I control this instrument and also to get the data from the instrument? Let's say you are at home and then you want to access to this instrument in your lab. Okay, but of course, firstly you need to physically connect this instrument to whatever circuit that you want to measure and so on, right? So for example, in this case is the engineer can actually write, okay, um, this application, okay, right? In fact, this application, I've written this application to remotely access this oscilloscope. So for example, I can connect to this oscilloscope, okay, so it's now connected. So I can do some, you can see I can control it. In the background, you can see that is a real oscilloscope, okay? In fact, I just show you, this is my hand, so you can see me, okay? So this is
Oh,
oscilloscope.
okay. Mhm.
So you can really adjust it, okay, and control it, right? For example, I can disable this channel. I can turn on the channel 2, and I can also change the time and so on. But now, of course, you can see that is not really um, properly scale, and
Mhm.
we don't have a static oscilloscope over
Mhm.
there. So I can do this. I can click auto scale, and then you can see that it automatically scale it, right?
Mhm.
Once it automatically scale it, then I can also, of course, do some adjustment as well if I want to,
Mhm.
right? This is channel 2. Of course, you can't see it. Okay, so you can change it. You can change, for example, the time per division, right? And I can now download a screenshot of this oscilloscope down to my machine. This is my machine. Currently, it's empty,
Okay.
so I can just
Mhm.
click digitize, and then I can capture. Then you can see it will be exactly the same as what
Oh,
we see.
yes.
Yeah. So this allows us to remotely access the instrument, not limited to oscilloscope. Okay, you can also remotely access a digital multimeter, for example. If your digital multimeter has this interface to be connected to the computer, but modern instrument mostly have this interface. So you can remotely actually connect it to all these instruments, and then you can control them. Yeah, so
Mhm.
this is just one of the application, okay, that the engineers can actually develop, okay, and they can contribute, of course. Once you develop this one, you can share it with the community, and then people
Oh,
can use it, right? And I think the main contribution that the
mhm.
engineer can actually contribute to Python will be in the interfacing with the hardware. Okay,
Mhm.
because engineer, we have the knowledge to deal with the hardware, right?
Yes.
So we can contribute our knowledge, okay, in dealing with the hardware by
Mhm.
writing or sharing the codes as library, for example, to interface with the oscilloscope in this case, right? So that for those who are not that technically savvy user, they can use those library of readily made code to access the hardware. So this, I think, will be the part where the engineers can contribute.
Yes, so it's very interesting to see how we can actually develop this application to interface with a physical device using the Python programming language.
Yes.
Um, if we use a lot of Python in real world applications such as this, yeah, this is an example of a real world application where maybe during the pandemic we cannot access the lab physically, so it has to be done online. How about other challenges? Yeah, what are the other challenges of actually using Python in real world applications?
Yeah, of course. Um, Python have its strength as well as
Mm-hmm.
weaknesses. Okay,
Oh, okay.
right. So there are limitations as well for Python.
Ah, okay.
I think the strength will be the main one will be the huge amount of libraries that we can use
Yes.
to build.
Yeah.
For example, to build this GUI, we have the
Mm-hmm.
library to build it as well. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
And then also there's a library for us to talk to the hardware, to communicate with the instrument, okay, and
Mm-hmm.
so on. Um, However, okay, I think the main weakness of Python is slower compared
Oh,
to
so,
compiled languages. Yes,
okay.
Python is an interpreter-based language. Meaning that what happened is that when you run a Python code,
Mm-hmm.
the interpreter will convert this code into bytecode, and
Oh,
then
okay.
only converted into the machine code during the runtime. So meaning that
Oh,
we don't have the machine code ready. So all
oh,
these are actually converted during the runtime. During the runtime means that when you run the code, then only is converted. So it's slower
oh,
compared to the compile languages such as C or C++ and so on.
oh,
Because for C and C++, the code is already compiled, okay,
mm-hmm.
and linked into the executable machine code. It's already in the
Mm-hmm.
machine code format. So
Mm-hmm.
when you run them, there's no extra step to convert them into bytecodes and then from bytecodes into machine code. So they are
Mm-hmm.
faster in this way.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first weakness, is slower. The
Mm-hmm.
second one will be um, it actually has a larger memory footprint. Larger memory footprints means that it will take up more memory. Okay, so
Oh,
for example, in C language, if you are having a 64-bit floating point data, okay, maybe for those who are not aware, floating point data are the data with decimal point lah. Okay, so let's say for a 64-bit floating point data in C language is 8 bytes. Okay, 8 bytes. The size is 8 bytes. All right, the
okay.
bytes is a unit for storage. Okay, so it's 8 bytes. Now in Python, is 24 bytes. Okay, it's not 8 bytes, it's 24 bytes,
Oh,
which is 3 times larger. Okay, just for one
larger.
data is already 3 times larger. Okay,
Oh,
three
okay,
times
okay.
larger, right?
Yeah,
So it also takes a larger memory footprint. Okay, consume more memory. And thirdly is because of this how Python is implemented. It's actually interpreter based, and um, it's not so efficient in multi-threading application. Okay, it's not as good as other programming languages in this aspect. That is
uh,
for multi-threading and multi-processing application. Because of this limitation in Python, which is called global interpreter lock. Yeah. So this is another limitation. Not efficient. Okay,
uh-huh.
in multi-threading and multi-processing.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Then one more.
So,
Okay, one more
yes.
limitation is in terms of application portability. What it means
Mm,
is that um, you will see that for Python, after I write the program, right, the way to deploy the application is slightly different from other kind of programming languages.
mm.
For other programming languages, is you just have one exe file, right,
Yeah,
executable
yes,
file,
yes,
right,
yes.
you just
Uh,
distribute your a single file.
mm,
Python is different, okay? You can still convert it into exe, but because there are so many dependency, you use a lot of libraries, okay, when
mm,
developing the application, right?
mm,
So it's not that easy to convert it into a single executable file. So for
mm,
Python, usually the way that they distribute the application or deploy the solution is they deploy it either as a web application
mm.
or they deploy it as a container. A container is something like you can view it as something like a virtual machine, something like that.
Oh,
So this is again another limitation of Python. Say
okay, okay. Is there any other programming languages that are similar to Python or no?
okay. So far, if in terms of the
Mm-hmm.
The number of libraries available, I would say that Python is still
The, the
having the
largest
most
lah,
library,
the most
the
likely, yeah.
largest. But if you compare with the capability, uh, there are other programming languages which are better than Python in certain areas. For example, if you are dealing with front end
Mm-hmm.
web application, JavaScript is still the leader. Is still better than
Mm-hmm.
Python. Okay. Then if you are looking at the memory management, in terms of memory usage, right? Other compile programming languages are actually better than Python. And
Mm-hmm.
we have actually a new programming language called Julia,
Oh,
Julia. It's a new
oh,
programming language.
okay.
And this Julia is actually better in this memory management, okay, better than Python. And uh, only that Julia is still considered quite young compared to Python. Okay, so Julia is only released in 2012, so just 10 years ago
Oh,
lah.
10
Compared to
years.
Python, over 30 years already. So Python can be considered to be quite matured already. Okay,
Mm.
and then in terms of data analytics, we have a programming language called R. Okay, the
Oh,
language is just R. So R is very good for data processing, data analysis, and analytics as well. Okay, and also visualization, data visualization. Okay, so it's just that if you compare this to Python, one good thing about Python is that you can use Python for all these different applications.
yeah,
Okay, so
yes.
for example, it's not as good as JavaScript for front end web application, but Python can do that. It's just that it's not as good as JavaScript. Okay, and
Mm.
also, if you look at, let's say, for data processing and analysis, Python can also do that. Okay, so it means that you don't have to switch between different programming languages. You
So
just need to
just
learn
one
about one.
Python.
Yes,
Yeah, and then you
that
can
is
do
the
all the applications. Okay. So
yes.
other programming language, do you
You
think they have a chance to catch up to Python in terms of applications? Or I think because you
okay.
said Python
Uh,
has the largest library, right?
yes.
Mm.
Okay. So in this case, I will say that Python will still continue to be popular lah, for many
Yeah.
years to come.
Okay.
Because firstly is it has a very huge community already. Okay,
Mm-hmm,
many
mm-hmm,
people are using Python.
mm-hmm,
Secondly is the libraries. Okay, a lot of
mm,
these libraries are available for Python, especially for AI and also for data science. Okay,
mm,
right. And Python is actually supported by many big organizations. These big
mm.
organizations such as Google,
Google, yeah, you
Facebook,
mentioned. Uh-huh.
Amazon, even Apple. Okay, they are all using Python, and they actually shared the libraries that they have developed. Okay,
Mm.
right. Even NASA also is a big user of Python.
Python,
Right, so
NASA, eh?
they even develop and also share their libraries for Python.
Oh,
Right. So I
okay.
will say that for the next few years, Python will still be very popular,
Popular, yeah.
unless there is a programming language that can also be used for this different kind of application, and it
Okay,
can actually um, beats Python in terms of those, like for example, the slowness of Python, and
uh-huh.
also the memory usage, and also the multi-processing. So if that
Okay.
programming language is better than Python in these three, and it
Mm,
also can be used for very diverse application, then yes, uh, Python will be overtaken by that programming language. But currently, of course, Python is not stopping there. So as
mm,
I've told you earlier, every 15 months there is a new version coming out, right?
mm, mm, yes,
So
yes.
now they are focusing on optimizing Python. They want to
Mm,
make it to execute code faster
faster.
and also better in terms of multi-processing. They are working on
Okay,
this.
okay.
So when they manage to overcome this, I
Uh-huh.
will say that Python can still continue to be popular lah, for many years to
Okay.
come.
So for all our viewers, yeah, so Python is a very popular language. And how is Python programming actually helpful to achieve a career in electrical and electronics engineering? Do you think it can be helpful? Is Python
Yes,
programming language?
definitely, definitely.
Mm, yeah.
Okay, nowadays we are living in a world which is actually I would say not to say dominated by AI, but you see that AI is being used in many applications, right?
Yes, it's going to be a part of our
Uh,
lives, right? Yeah.
yes,
Surrounded
yes.
by
In fact,
AI.
we are already using AI every day on daily basis
Yes.
already.
Yes. Yes.
For
Yes.
example, yeah, when you unlock your phone, you are using AI. When you
Yeah.
use Google search, you are actually using AI.
Yes. Yes.
When you are using, let's say, Google Map or Waze, you are using AI. So it's already
Mm,
part of our life already.
yeah. Yeah.
So just like how electricity changed our life more than 100 years ago, AI
Mm,
is going to change our life as well,
mm,
right? So we use electricity in almost every aspect of our life.
mm,
AI is going to be the same. Okay.
mm,
So how to actually embrace AI? How to actually use AI to your advantage, right?
mm,
Use AI to help you to solve problem. Uh,
mm.
One of it is to use Python, right?
Yeah.
Because Python has these very popular libraries for AI application. So learn about Python, then you will be able to develop AI solution.
Yes. So Python definitely is helpful. Python programming knowledge of Python programming is helpful to achieve a career in electrical and electronics engineering. So
Yes,
yes, for all our viewers here who might be considering to take up engineering, maybe we'll go to the last question for this today's webinar. What is your advice, yeah, to students who are aspiring to become programmers who develop engineering solutions?
okay. Um, Even though our webinar today is we focus on Python, but
In engineering
remember
applications. Yeah.
that programming is just a tool for problem solving.
Mm,
Yeah, it's a tool for problem solving. It doesn't mean that you must just learn about Python. Okay, there are many
mm,
other programming languages, right? So
mhm,
regardless of whether it is Python, C++,
mm,
Java, or
mm,
other programming languages, you
yes.
should choose and master a programming language that you are comfortable with. Okay, for
Mhm,
example, you feel that Python is very easy to use and so on. You are
yes. Yes.
comfortable with Python. Yes,
Mhm,
then you can try to master Python. Okay, or you think that C++ is actually more suitable for you, then yes,
mhm,
you master C++. Okay, so it's just that in this case, Python is just like a Swiss Army knife. You know a Swiss Army knife, right? Okay, we can use
yes.
it for multi-purpose. Okay,
Yeah.
multiple purposes. Okay,
Mhm,
so Python is the Swiss Army knife that can be used to solve various problems. Okay, from AI to embedded system to IoT, even to financial technology. Okay, so it has many usage. Okay, right. Anyway, okay, so regardless of which programming languages that you actually master and you actually choose, um, it will be also beneficial to learn a different programming language. For example, you learn about Python. Okay,
mhm,
one of the strength of Python is it allow us to write code faster, meaning that you can quickly come up with a solution,
mhm,
quickly
mhm,
come up with a program. However, the weakness is that it's slow. Okay, so this can be overcome if you learn another programming language, for example, like C or C++, right? So that you will have additional tools up your sleeve. Okay, because once you can come up with a solution very fast using Python, the next step maybe you want to optimize your code, you want to fine tune your code so that it can run faster, and in that case, C or C++ will be very helpful. Okay, and also in addition to just learning about programming languages, because now we are living in a digitally connected world. We are
mhm,
talking about Internet of Things. We are talking about metaverse, right? So, in addition to programming, it's also good to learn about some other tools. For example, JIT. Okay, not sure we heard about this GIT. JIT. Okay, JIT is actually an online platform for collaborative software development. Right. So learning about that will be good because now you can actually use this JIT to develop software with some other teams, okay, over the internet, right? And then you should also try to learn about cloud computing, okay, and also containerization, okay, using, for example, tools like Docker. Okay, so this will be very helpful, especially for the future programmer. Okay, so I think that's all from me about this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much to Dr. Tan Wei Hao for sharing about how we can use Python programming in engineering applications. Yeah, so we have seen just now how there are so many applications for Python programming, and how it's helpful, yeah, to achieve a career in electrical and electronics engineering. Yeah, and also, for programmers who want to develop engineering solutions, of course, the Python is just a tool. There are other languages as well that we can learn. Okay, so thank you so much, Dr. Tan Wei Hao, for sharing again on the Python in engineering applications. So for our viewers, yeah, please fill in the attendance form in the chat box. Yeah, so you can go to the Facebook Live or MMU Live chat box, and you can see there is a website link for your attendance form. Okay, please fill in the attendance form to get your e-certificate. Okay, so I think that's all for our webinar today on using Python in engineering applications. Thank you again to Dr. Tan Wei Hao for sharing all your knowledge on Python. It's a very interesting webinar, and I hope all our viewers also find Python, interesting, and it's the future, especially AI. So it will, convince you to take up engineering. Yeah, it's a part of your undergraduate studies. Okay, okay. So thank you again, Dr. Tat.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay.